Well, guys, this is Bobby with the Pursuit of Happiness, and we have the supercharger bolted to the 5.7. It's like I said, this is just a test fit. The brackets are made of wood currently. The aluminum brackets are actually being fabricated as we speak. So yeah, this is obviously a 5.7 Charger Pursuit. So we have it bolted in. A couple things about this swap that you're going to notice is for your transmission dipstick tube. Let me get a light and I'll show you. For your transmission dipstick tube, it's going to have to be bent over to the side because the fuel line where it exits. This is for the guys with the NAG 1 5-speeds, not the 8-speed. So it's going to have to be bent over to the side, and this might actually, you might actually have an issue if you're going to use Hellcat valve covers. I'm not going to use Hellcat valve covers, and I'll show you what my solution is for that in just a bit. But I may end up also having to do a couple of little things to get my coolant lines for the back of this supercharger to run, to actually run and fit properly. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But it's definitely there's always when it comes down to a custom build, it's always going to be some custom fabrication. So and another thing, to bolt this supercharger in after you put my brackets that that's being designed on here, you're going to have to take your push clips out of your wiper cowl here and take your two 13mm bolts on either side out and lift it up. Actually, I would recommend removing it entirely, so that what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to remove your windshield wiper arms. Be sure to mark and, whichever one's going to which side. Maybe put a piece of masking tape on it with, passenger side and driver side. Then you're going to want to remove this metal bar entirely, because if you look, you can see there's a mounting bolt that I don't have in yet because of this bar being in place, and you just cannot get to it. And you're also going to have to lift this bar up anyway just to set the supercharger down on these mounts. So it's best to just remove it while you got the opportunity and while you still got enough room with the 5.7 manifold removed. But the good news is when you actually put this supercharger on, it does clear. It actually has just enough room to clear. This bar, if I'm not mistaken, let me check. Yeah, this bar is actually fully seated on the car how it's supposed to be. So if you look here, you've probably got about a half an inch or so of clearance. Actually, I would say closer to 3/8 of an inch. So with that being said, some of you might get lucky and be able to not have to modify this bar for that bolt head to fit. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the bar off. I'm gonna mark where my supercharger bolt head is supposed to be with a paint pen. I'm gonna take that bar off, and I'm just gonna tap it with a ball peen hammer to dent the bottom of it up a little bit, so I just have just a hair more room to when everything is sat back down to actually clear that bolt head and it not put any strain on this upper bar here, or any more strain on top of that bolt, because last thing we need is this thing having any issues. Another thing that I'm going to warn everybody about: check your motor mounts. The reason I say that is because you got this supercharger on your car and you punch it to the floor, and in drive it'll be the driver's side motor mount, and that motor mount decides to be bad, or if it is bad, you're always going to have a little bit of deflection with these things, and I might actually wind up notching this entire center bar here, because it has to be there. The bar has to be there. It's a stabilizer also for your windshield wiper motor. So what I might end up doing is notching this bar out back enough and putting a an L channel plate inside of it and welding it, and then, you know, sanding and painting it to make sure that this supercharger has enough to, you know, room in the backside, at least where the top of the lid bolts down, for it to actually clear this bar. And this is for the Chargers and 300s. The Challenger, I don't believe you're going to have to worry about that. I believe, you know, I believe the front end is a lot longer, so you're not going to have this issue exactly. It's just with the Charger guys. But let's get into everything that's needed for this swap. And I know I don't have every little thing just yet that's going to be on here. But for one, you're going to need the coolant reservoir for the supercharger. I've got that. You are going to need this is the piping that comes from the back of the supercharger. So what it's going to do is your coolant tank is actually going to be on, like just like this, bolted to the passenger strut tower. These are going to come in off of the supercharger, and it's going to connect this hose right here is going to connect to this nipple right here. And then from there, it's going to run to these hoses here. These are going to go in here, and then you've got a nipple right here on the coolant reservoir. So boom, that completes that. Then these two run down. Those two actually come up next to in front of the motor and run down to this pump. And from there, what's actually going to be is they're not both going to run to just that pump. You're going to need the intercooler. This is actually a Hallcat intercooler. I got lucky, picked it up off of Facebook for, I think, 60 bucks. So we'll get back over here. So these are just to get coolant flowing from the supercharger down to the coolant pump, to the intercooler. Now, I am not using Hellcat valve covers. Why? Well, I think the cheapest I found was like 470 bucks for a pair of them, and I just don't want to pay that. So what I'm doing here is these are actually Mazda PCV valves. And think about back in the old small block Chevy days. They sold valve covers all the time that had no breather on them for the PCV system. So what people had to do was make their own holes, put their own grommets in, and create a PCV system. So essentially that's what I'm going to do here, because the Hellcat valve cover has a PCV system that's designed into it already. And what my idea for this is so we don't get massive blow by, is I'm going to take and I'm going to drill a hole. Actually, I got another valve cover right here actually that I'm going to use for a demonstration. We're going to take, and we'll say this is the driver side valve cover. So, driver side valve cover. We're going to find the center point of this valve cover, and keep in mind it's going to be tipped like this on the engine. So my idea, if we flip this over, if you look, it's all ribbed under there. So I'm going to drill a hole probably around in between this area here. I'm going to try and get in between these ribs, so it'll probably be right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a PCV grommet, and I'm going to pop my PCV valve in. I'm going to do it on both sides. So I'm going to do it on both sides. Here's my PCV grommets. And I'm going to create my own PCV valve system. Now you guys probably wonder, what about oil? How the hell are you going to put oil in your engine? You going to take a valve cover off every time? No. I could, but it's going to be a pain in the ass because it doesn't drain down very fast. So what my idea for that is, again, keep in mind, this is going to be like this. And there's really no good flat spots on this valve cover that you're going to be able to access, because if you think about it, let me grab a coil pack here. And you pop your coil pack down in here. Put your coil pack down in this valve cover. Actually, put it in just like this. You pop that coil pack down in the valve cover here. And you're looking at, let me flip this around actually. You're looking at no good flat surface for your valve cover for this to go into. It's all on a rocky area. So that's something I'm going to have to try and figure out, because this is going to have to be put on a flat surface. But as far as like an oil fill, things like that, what I might end up doing, because the way that this is designed, this little thing here is designed, it's 3 pieces. It's a cap with an O-ring. So there's your cap with your O-ring. Then it is, let me get this unscrewed here. How this works is this, after you drill your hole, I believe this is like a 1 1/4 inch hole. After you drill your hole, this has an O-ring on it. You're going to put this up through the bottom of the valve cover. You're going to screw this piece down on top of it, and you're going to lock it in place with an Allen wrench on these threads. So these will constantly stay in the valve cover. This is just your cap that you unscrew and screw in, pour oil right down into your engine. That's the idea for that. You're also going to need some vacuum caps just to block off whatever ports for now. I don't think I'm going to use these. This was early on in my thought process. I use them all the time for different stuff though, so you can use or not use these. These were $5 on eBay. These here for both of these was this was $12 and this was about 20 for this cap here. Then I decided I'm going to do something a little cool with the lid. I'm going to take the supercharger lid off, and it is going to be hydro dipped in carbon fiber. This is just a sheet of gasket material by Felpro. And let's see, I think that's the part number for it. This is for if I was going to make my own custom gaskets for this supercharger, which I have something I'm going to do, update on that. But this is the Hallcat bypass valve controller right here from Smooth Boost. This is literally, this is $600 by itself. This here, like I said, $600. It comes with the instructions, super simple. It's a 3-wire install, and then this just plugs right into the Hellcat bypass valve, like factory. This was $640 actually. It was like $638 or something like that shipped, because I got the express shipping, and it still took them 2 weeks to get the shipping process started. So don't waste your money on it if you ask me. But that was $638. This here was $125. Comes with your mounting brackets. Comes with your pigtail. And this is one of the most important things. You cannot forget this. This is a Walbro drop-in fuel pump. And let's see if we can get that. That's the part number right there, the F9. That's the part number. This was $134. I ordered it from a company on eBay. Very reputable company. Basically, they had great reviews, and when I actually got it in from them, this nipple here was broke straight off, and it was due to just the shipping company. They weren't very careful with this package. I called them up. I said, "Hey, this is broken off." I mean, it was broken off actually just about all the way down to this line here. It was broke off right here. So I called them up, said, "Hey, this thing's screwed up." They sent me another one out. It was here in 2 days. All of this right here, coolant tank, it doesn't come with the bracket. I ended up finding a bracket used on eBay for $20. The bracket will be in soon. These 3 items here was $225. $225 for these. These are the most expensive. These are like $125. This was like $90, and I think this was, actually no, I take that back. I'll have to look, but I know all this combined was $225. And here is some part numbers for you guys. This is the part number for the reservoir. This here is the part number for the tube and supply return. And let me get the part number for this. And they will ask you too what your intentions are with this stuff. Here's the part number right here. There's the part numbers for these. And you're going to order these, and then about a week later you're going to get an email saying, oh, we need your VIN number. You're going to have to call them and tell them this is for a custom application. My VIN number's not going to matter because of this, that, and the other thing. And they'll still ship them out. So I ended up getting a 2-pod pillar gauge. This is for my boost gauge and supercharger coolant temperature. That was like $8 on eBay. Here is my boost gauge. It is a tinted version. That on eBay was like 22 bucks. And they're actually, I think that's Glow Shift brand if I remember correctly. And actually, no, this is the boost gauge and this is the coolant gauge. Combined, I got like 50 bucks in gauges there. And then I got lucky. I got, Hallcat intercooler for 60 bucks. 125 for those, 130 for that. So let's get this up here. So we'll say 225. We'll round that to 10. So 235, 240. We'll make this 280. We'll round those 12s up to 20. So yeah, 280. And now you're looking at 400 and something right there. So like we'll call that 400. Then that right there, the smooth boost with shipping, you're looking like, so we're gonna bring it up to 1,040 because that was 638 bucks. So then now you're looking at 1,090 with these two gauges here. And then you're looking at what, 1,200 and 1,300 and like 10. We'll say 1,310, 1,320 for this. And then I've got another 60 or 70 in that, or 60 into that. So it's $1,380. $1,380 in parts here. I have $1,500 into my supercharger. And then I'm probably going to have another, I'm probably going to have another about 400 in my adapter brackets here, including my supercharger pulley brackets and my supercharger pulley spacer. Now keep in mind, I'm having all of these brackets, all these adapters, all these spacers custom made. While there are other companies out there making these, and I may be piggybacking off of their design, I'm designing these better than they are. Why do I say that? Because me and my machinist have actually sat down and talked about this. These brackets, or these adapters here, are actually going to have provisions in them for factory O-ring style gaskets. What I mean by that is you're going to be able to walk into O'Reilly's and pay $16 for one set of intake gaskets, and that's going to be your intake gasket set. That's going to be for this adapter where it mates down to the cylinder head. And if you go pay another 16 bucks, you're going to have the exact same setup to where the supercharger mates to the adapter itself. So we're going to see how that goes. If that doesn't work out, then I'll call my machinist up and I'll say, hey, we're going to have to delete the O-ring gaskets off the top half and just have to go grab some regular old Hellcat, the crush style supercharger gaskets. But honestly, guys, if you think about it, there's guys that are still taking the 5.7 intake manifolds and the 6.4 intake manifolds, and they are getting the pro chargers that bolt onto them, and they're running 8, 9, 10 pounds of boost, sometimes up to 13 to 15 pounds of boost through those intakes, through those O-ring gaskets. I don't think that this is going to be any different, based off of, my thoughts and everything. We'll see, though. We'll see how it goes. So, for these brackets, for these adapter brackets here, we're looking at 250 to 275 for these pair of brackets. They are going to come with bolts and hardware, and it'd be cheaper, honestly, for you guys to just go grab your gaskets from O'Reilly's. They're $15.99. You know, it's that cheap. So these are going to come with the bolts that actually will bolt these brackets down to your cylinder head. And from there, what I recommend actually with these brackets going down to your cylinder heads, leave them a little bit loose. For what reason? Is leave them a little loose because they do have some play. They have some play all the way around. That way you can actually bolt them down to the cylinder head, and if need be, you can shift them back and forth to give a little bit of play. That way you can still have enough room to bolt your supercharger down. And what I typically do is I leave them a little bit loose to where they can still be shifted around and messed with a decent amount of force, but they'll stay in place when you have to lift the supercharger back off. So this would be my installation instructions for these brackets. Put them on, tighten them down by hand. Just finger tight. That's all you need. Is finger tight. Grab an extension and a ratchet. You know, run them down real fast. But then take the ratchet off the extension and just spin it down by hand with your fingers. Get it nice and, get it a little bit snug that way. Make sure you can still move them back and forth. And then have a buddy help you put the supercharger down. The supercharger does have alignment dowels on the passenger side. It doesn't have them on the driver's side. So the passenger side is guaranteed to line up and bolt down no matter what. The driver's side is the side that you might need to shimmy the adapter back and forth. And from what I hear, that's the same thing with all the other competition. They got to do the same thing. So I haven't had any issue at all. I mean, boom, I dropped the brackets on, dropped the supercharger on. I always run my bolts down with my fingers first, a couple threads, and then I pull back up to make sure they're seated properly and make sure they're actually in there before I start running everything back down 100%. So with that being said, it's just a matter of time now. It's going to be about 3 days, and I should have 3 or 4 more days, and I should have the aluminum brackets for here. Then we're getting started on the brackets for the supercharger pulley, because as you can see here, if you look, you can tell that pulley is nowhere near lining up. And a lot of people will take that off and flip it around, and it'll run a belt just fine on it. I'm not going to do that. I am actually going to have a spacer made that will space that pulley off of the engine in the appropriate manner, and the way that it's going to have the best amount of support, so that we don't have to worry about snapping a pulley out the front of the snout of the charger. So, and I'll get part numbers for the longer serpentine belt and everything like that for you guys. So, but this is it. This is the start of something really cool. I've still got a couple other things. I know that one thing that I am going to have to design is I'm actually going to be designing some block off plugs for these here. Something that you can pop an O-ring on, and it'll be a plate. Your typical port block off ideas. Boom, pop it in, tighten it down, done. Set it and forget it type thing. So yeah, this was a big step forward. And also, for the guys that are wondering, I'm pretty sure you've already seen Garrett Johnson's charger, but for those of you that haven't, it does not clear a stock 11 to 14 hood. So you're either gonna have to go get a aftermarket hood or go the Garrett Johnson way, cut a big ass hole in your hood. So, well, that'll be it for this video, guys. The next video, I guess we'll go and we'll see from there. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of little details I might have missed, just trying to think of it in my head. But if you guys got any questions, feel free to comment here, and I will get back as soon as I can.